Oh, good morning, everybody. It's Sunday, the 20th of April 2025, Easter Sunday. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning, quite grey and overcast, as you can see here in Launceston. I'm actually at the Tamar Islands wetland at the moment. I've just finished my run for the day and I'm about to ride home. Now, while I'm riding, I'm on my Bergman 650 2016 Bergman 650 scooter, and I have my camera, my DJI Action 2 camera in the chest harness, so I'm not sure what you're going to see other than some of the controls and so forth. And I have my plug-in microphone which I've taped to my jacket, and I'm hoping that you're going to pick up some of the commentary, or all of the commentary, as I'm riding home. So I'll just get out of here and get on the road. Now in this ride I'm going to do some live commentary, something I haven't done before when it comes to motorcycling, because I haven't had an in-helmet microphone. So as I say, I don't know what you're going to hear. I hope you're going to be able to hear the commentary I'm offering. I'm going to talk to you about lane filtering. I'm going to talk to you about that because I came across a social media post from the New South Wales Police recently. And yet before you say anything, I do get my information from other sources besides social media posts, newspapers and news sites as well. But I came across a social media post from the New South Wales Police that I was talking about motorcycling and the vulnerabilities in motorcycle space, the number of accidents, the number of deaths and all that sort of stuff. And none of that was new to me, not that I was unconcerned about it. It wasn't new information. I was well aware of all that sort of information. But the comments which I read, the comments that I read, which I assume were mostly from motorcyclists, were to say that there needs to be an education campaign about lane filtering. So I thought that I would do my bit for that. So let me explain what lane filtering is, first of all. Imagine you're on a multi-lane highway or a multi-lane road like this one. In other words, there are two or more lanes both going in the same direction as you are. And the lane that I'm in here, that's closest to the left-hand edge of the road, we'll call lane 1, and the next lane is lane 2, and the next lane will be lane 3, and so on. So lane filtering means that under certain circumstances, and I'll explain those circumstances in a moment because they're different in Tasmania than they are in New South Wales, but under certain circumstances the motorcyclist is allowed to ride in the space that's between the vehicles in lane 1 and lane 2. So let's assume that everybody's doing the right thing and staying in their lane, and their lane heading assist thing in their car is helping them to do that. I know not all cars have that, but let's assume that all the vehicles are staying in their lane. There's a space, what we might call a no man's land, between lane 1 and lane 2. And in certain circumstances, and in Tasmania those circumstances are these. First of all, the traffic must either be stationary or travelling at less than 30 kilometres an hour. Secondly, you must not do it, you cannot do it unless you are a fully licensed rider. In other words, you have an L plate, red and green P plate, you are not allowed to lane filter. You are not allowed to lane filter in Tasmania in a school zone during school hours. The school zones operate in school hours between, I think, about 7:30 and 9 o'clock, and then about 2:30 and 4 o'clock. Check any signs that are around your schools and say that. I should make perfectly clear, of course, that I'm not a lawyer and none of this is legal advice. It's just how I have read the rules when I check them up to do this video. You can also not do them where there's a line of parked cars, because obviously then you would be travelling in the shoulder of the road, and that's not allowed. Now in New South Wales, you are allowed to lane filter, providing the traffic is either stationary or moving at less than 30 kilometres an hour. There are no other restrictions. In other words, you don't have to have conditions on your licence. There are no conditions around school zones. The only requirement is that you do it, that it is safe for you to do it. So that's what lane filtering is. Lane splitting, which you often hear about, is people doing exactly what I've just described, and the traffic's travelling at more than 30 kilometres an hour. That's illegal. You must then, if you want to move in and out of the traffic, you must do a full lane changing thing. So you must change lanes from the left lane that I'm in now, lane 1, into lane 2 if you want to get past someone, and then move back into lane 1 if necessary once you've completed your overtaking move. So that's what lane filtering is. Why motorcyclists are allowed to do this? Because if you imagine that you come to an intersection like this one up here where there are lots of traffic, there are traffic lights and the vehicles and traffic is stopped, a motorcyclist is allowed to ride in that space so that they can get to the head of the queue, and then when the traffic starts moving again, they can just take off. So that reduces congestion a little bit, but it also reduces the travelling time for the motorcyclists. So the traffic authorities are happy saying we've given the motorcyclists a little bit less time on the road because we've allowed them to do this lane filtering. Now, I see some anecdotal evidence and posts and reports of motorcyclists and car drivers do all sorts of dumb and dangerous things to prevent lane filtering because their main gripe seems to be that's unfair. I think when I see that or hear that that's unfair, I wonder if I'm dealing with 10-year-old children. No, that's not fair. He's allowed to do it and I'm not. A person riding a motorcycle is riding a vehicle that is much more manoeuvrable, much lighter, much more agile than the giant SUV that people try and choose to ride, or the 4x4 dual cab ute they choose to ride. And as a compensation for that agility, the traffic authorities have said, here, here's some lane footing, so get to head of the queue. What happens, so according to some of those reports, is that the drivers of the vehicles in lane 1 turn their wheels slightly to the right to narrow the space between the vehicles. The drivers of some vehicles in lane 2 turn their wheels slightly to the left, again to narrow the space, so it's more difficult for the motorcyclists to do their lane through because now the space isn't as wide and as even as it was. I should say I don't do lane filtering. I don't do it in Tasmania because I'm never in that much of a hurry for one thing, but secondly, this Bergman I'm riding is a little wider at the front because it has extra things added to the fairing at the front to cut down the wind. They were put on by the previous owner, and it also has side cases at the back which make it wider at the back. I don't do it on the bike I ride in New South Wales because it's a Spider, which is as wide at the front as a small hatch, and it's too wide to do it. So I don't do it. That doesn't mean it's not illegal, it's not legal, and it's not allowed, and drivers should just put up with it. If you see a motorcyclist coming up in your wing mirror, lane filtering, they're allowed to do it. And they're not necessarily some muggle who's just trying to get ahead. There could be a bloke my age, for example, who just likes riding motorcycles and doesn't want to sit in traffic at the traffic lights, and the laws say you can get to the front of the queue, so they get to the front of the queue. And they want someone opening their door to just check if their wheels are still there or something, uh, potentially causing the motorcyclist to have an accident. They don't want some fool winding down the window and slapping the motorcyclist on the head or on the helmet because they thought it was unfair that he was allowed to do lane filtering. They just want to be able to do what the law says they're allowed to do, providing it's safe, providing the vehicles are stationary or coming at less than 30 kilometres an hour, providing it's not in a school zone, providing you're fully licensed, and providing you've done appropriate checks to make sure it is safe to do it in the first place. So that's what lane filtering is. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment, provided in the usual place, and I will comment. I'll get back to you when I'm aware of your comment. Have a nice day. Enjoy your Easter eggs, but don't eat too many.